But a lot of people still refer to Israel as a settler colonial state. It's still looked upon as a colonial project that's still going on. And it surprises me that for all the anti-imperialism in the United States from the progressive left and left of centers, how come this particular notion of Israel being a settler colony, it's difficult for that to break ground? I mean, people look at Israel and the two-state solution and the Jewish people's homeland and all of that. That conversation is there. But it being a colonial project, that language has slowly been diminished over time. But on the other side, you see the language of apartheid being brought in. So Israel on one side has managed to make us forget about one side, but their actions within the territorial boundaries, so to say, their actions have brought a whole other problem for them in terms of these apartheid issues. So how do you view this? I mean, apartheid itself, I want the audience to remember, it took the United Kingdom under Margaret Thatcher a very long time to publicly state that they were against the apartheid regime in South Africa. So is this something that, again, the Western countries may have to come to realize later on, that we just have to give them time?
Yeah, the Western countries have, they have strategic relationship with Israel, because they think, they think Israel is their representative, the real representative in the Middle East. So they need to protect this representative. That's what the Americans think, and most of the Western countries think. And this is what Theodor Herzl, the father of modern Zionism, and he said, we will be the bulwark for the West to protect the West from the Oriental barbarians, like we are. We are Oriental barbarians, like not only the Arabs, the entire
Orient. Was talking about.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. So that's what That's so. At one point, Israel was there to protect the Suez Canal in the 1956 war, and now the Israelis being used as to see to that. Now there's one more thing I want just before I forget that. When you look at the map, that's what a lot of people think. The Israel is able to play the victim card, because on the map, Israel is just a small place surrounded by Arabs. But it's a huge territory. The Arab Middle East is just in the middle, surrounded by hostile powers. They call it now. They now no more hostile. Most of them have made peace, and they are very good. They have friendly relations. So on the map, you see a small Israel, but actually, when your military power is concerned, none of these countries, none of the Arab and or the Middle Eastern countries can come close to Israel. Military power is concerned. They were some say they were the fourth, but according to some other thing, they were the first top 20, the military powers. Somewhere there. Some says because of if you bring that. The nuclear arsenal also into picture, they should be in the top 5 or top 10 ranks. So nobody, Saudi Arabia, they don't, and besides, most of the weapons the Saudis and the United Arab Emirates or the Americans sell to these Middle Eastern Arab countries cannot be used against Israel. That's one of the conditions. So they're handicapped. They have weapons, they can't fight, and so it's very, 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 very complex situation, this Middle East, Israel is concerned. So
in the United States and in British media, there is a sort of a conflict right now, left and right versus Democrats, Republicans, Conservative, Labour, that kind of thing. Now, in this particular conflict, we see a very easy right-left divide. The right wing generally has been supportive of Israel. The left wing is the progressive left is for Palestinian rights and a Palestinian state. I wonder how you view the current divide, because there seem to be in the American right wing at least, there is a isolationist wing, shall I say. They are anti-war, they're anti-conflict, and these are the same group of people who are against providing more military aid to Ukraine. And they are also now sort of one of the most, I think, the progressive left, you normally expect them to come from this angle. But even the populist right, they're called. The populist right, such as Tucker Carlson, for instance, has been openly calling on the United States to perhaps conditionalize their giving aid, the military aid to Israel. And they are asking how much military aid is enough military aid. So these questions coming from even powerful media centers on the right, including the progressive left media centers. Still, we don't see much shift in the United States government and in foreign policy. But on the other side, we saw polling for President Biden. He's going into an election next year. His support among Arab Americans has crumbled. His support among the youth vote helped him come to power. That's completely collapsed at the moment. So even his own political electoral ambitions are suffering because of this. Then you look at the masses, millions of people marching in major cities from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco to London, etc. Even with that mass of people, even with his own electoral prospects in danger, even with part of the right wing that is calling for a ceasefire, cessation, and facility, how is this democratic government in the United States unable to stop the bloodshed, unable to prevent deaths?
It's a big question, because we thought Joe Biden would be a pro-peace president, but he wasn't. Like say for instance, President Trump, he made an atrocious decision by declaring Jerusalem as the undivided capital of Israel. But did Joe Biden reverse it? He didn't. So he went along with
Not
that.
the Golan Heights.
Yeah,
he gave the
exactly.
rights
Yeah.
of Golan.
So everything, they are going ahead. But I mean, Biden was Obama's vice president. So Obama was, Obama opposed illegal settlements. And Obama's, when he was a lame duck president, after Trump was elected, at that particular period, he made use of
the veto,
that,
yes.
and he brought United Nations Security Council resolutions condemning Israel for buildings. I mean, he actually
That's quite a
it
surprise.
supported that. They did not use their veto power.
Yes.
He gave the fullest backing to that. So there is that particular. If he had been a part of that Obama administration, he should have played a bigger peace role.
Especially, Mr. Izzadeen, considering the fact that wasn't it 2014 when Mr. Prime Minister Netanyahu came to the United States and gave a speech to the Joint Houses of Congress, and he gave it against the Obama administration because it was against the Iran nuclear deal. So he gave a speech that was very critical of the Obama administration, with Vice President Biden sitting behind him as the head of the Senate. In such an instance, Biden being a member of that administration, the visuals of him going to Israel and giving his condolences to Netanyahu and the hugging, it just seemed very politically blind, almost, in a manner. He seemed to misunderstand the unpopularity of Netanyahu internationally, the challenges to his leadership within Israel, the fact that he wasn't able to bring together a coalition. Then he ended up with the most right-wing, extreme coalition you could probably get in Israel. Despite all of this, I suppose the point is that we all talk about the Israel lobby. We know about AIPAC and all of this. And we've seen that in the United States Congress, despite all the very emotional things that have been said, it is still the Palestinian American congresswoman, the only Palestinian American in the Congress that has been censured for Rashida Tlaib for a video that mentioned a phrase that might be considered anti-Semitic. Even in with such an instance, doesn't the Biden administration see an opportunity to win a brand new set of votes, to sort of once and for all bridge this gap between liberals and the Palestinian cause? Why is he not taking that opportunity?
It's very difficult to understand this U.S. politics when it comes to Israel. Like, say, for instance, every president has to, it has been the tradition, whether you are a Democrat or the Republican, you always, during the campaign trail and, you are public speaker, you declare that your loyalty to Israel, unwavering support to Israel, and United States will defend Israel and whatever the problem is. So these kind of, these declarations, and Biden is, he has said, he is a Zionist. He has admitted that he was a Zionist. But till recent, in spite of that, you can see when in September, Netanyahu visited United Nations General Assembly. Usually, the Israeli Prime Minister is given, they are met in White House, not in. But this time, Biden made a point. He was not invited to the White House. So he had a meeting with Netanyahu in New York. So it was, the media and the analysts saw this as, there is not much love lost between the two. Yeah, but after the the October 7 incidents, Biden showed, we came out and said, so Biden has been caught in some kind of a democratic, the pressure group within the Democrats saying that, look, you have to, till October 7, that was the case. So that was why, he did not meet uh, the Israeli Prime Minister in Washington, and he had a meeting with him in New York because of that. The powerful, a growing pressure group within the Democratic Party is existing. So that's in recognition of that, the Biden was kind of.
That's true.
But now he knows there's a bigger issue. So Israel's existence is under threat from a small ragtag militant group called Hamas. So
Yeah, that's important to
yeah.
point out, because I think the conversations about Israel's right to exist, unless you're a very extreme position on the left, most people agree with Israel's right to exist. Borders aside, the idea is that we can have the Jewish people deserve a Jewish state if that's what they so desire. They should be allowed to have that. Is there a threat to Israel? Is there some threat of Israel being wiped off the map? Is there some ethnic cleansing threat to Israel that you can see, that anyone has seen anywhere in recent times? It doesn't seem to be the case. Yet we always hear about this threat to Israel's existence.
Yeah, this is a kind of propaganda the Israelis.
Of course, it doesn't help that Iran and Hamas, etc., have explicitly called for the destruction of Israel. But the actions taken towards that seem almost no action taken towards.
I just said President Ahmadinejad, he was the first to use that word, wiped out.
Yes.
Israel needs to be wiped out. But that was given media coverage, widespread media coverage. But he corrected what he said. But what his correction was not given the similar publicity, the equal space in the media. He said, I don't want Israel. I mean, what I said was the Israeli government. What the Iranian president mentioned was, he doesn't want this Zionist entity. So if you are, Zionism is the problem. There was a United Nations resolution equating Zionism with racism, which United States, subsequently put pressure on all the countries and, got rid of that resolution. But that was in the 1990s. But till then, there existed a UN resolution equating Zionism with racism. So Iranians were thinking that Zionism is a bad ideology. It's an extremist ideology. It's an expansionist ideology. It's a colonialist ideology. That needs to be, it doesn't suit the present day, modern day political thinking, a civilized thinking. So therefore, it needs to be out, right? So that's particular. But Iranians, obviously, the Iranian president or Iranians did not mean the total ethnic cleansing of Jews. The Palestinians have recognized Israel. The Oslo Accord is one of the, they had their sign, which recognize Israel's right to exist. They made a declaration. So what else? So that's the mutual recognition is there. So there's nobody, and even the entire Arab countries think that they can go and wipe out Israel, they can't, because Israel has nuclear weapons. United States is backing them. The entire Western world, the United. So if there's today, for instance, a hypothetical scenario, taking all these countries, Saudi Arabia to Iraq to Iran and Algeria and Egypt, and everyone get together and they form a united front against Israel and invade Israel. They are not going to win it. They can't. They are incapable of doing it.
And I think the other conversation that's important for the audience to understand is that Israel has been very smart in saying they're the only democracy in the region. Okay, but they want to be a democracy within kind of a Jewish supremacist state. So that is the confusion. On one side, you say you want a Jewish state. On the other side, you say you want a democratic state. But you want the territorial boundaries to encapsulate Jewish people, so that within a democracy you will have a Jewish government.
Mm.
So that's why this one-state solution is so dangerous, because as you said, if you have a one-state solution, then
There won't be a, yeah.
there'll be at least a balance of power. So you can no longer call yourself a Jewish state. You can call yourself a proud democratic state in the Middle East.
It is secular,
A secular, proud,
democratic
but you'll
state,
never be
yeah.
able to call yourself a Jewish state. So I
Yeah.
think that's perhaps the important. And I think, in fairness to the Israelis, in fairness to Zionism, shall we say, I think if you look at Saudi Arabia, or if you look at, let's say, the Islamic Republic of Iran, for instance, this is essentially kind of the model that Israel is looking for, but with democracy. They want a Jewish supremacist state. Do they not? Do they not want something
Yeah.
that is purely run on Jewish values, that is based on the Torah? And I think the Haredi population is growing. It's the most fundamental Orthodox Jewish population within Israel. They're the fastest growing. That's why this government has been able to form a coalition government with a far-right, ultra-nationalist political party.
Yeah.
So this really does present a problem going forward, because it seems that the Israeli citizenry and the population is shifting further to the right, even as maybe, I don't know, maybe populations in some parts of the Middle East are slightly shifting into a more liberal, maybe at least among urban populations, there's a shift towards more liberal values. Certainly in the West, we are seeing the younger people, human rights organizations, they are pro-Palestine. They want a Palestinian state. But it's becoming more difficult, because on the Israeli side, there's even more extremism than there used to be 10, 15 years ago. So I think internally they're pulling in different directions.
Yeah. Now, when you're talking about democracy and the Jewish state and the exclusive Jewish state, that means what about 20% Arab population who are Israeli citizens, who happen to be there? They were the remnants of the people after the so-called ethnic cleansing that happened in 1948, the Nakba, we call it. So there are about 20% of the Arab population. They are undergoing tremendous, discrimination. They are not being given jobs in certain fields like electricity, water, because they have been looked down upon. There's some kind of suspicion. They can,
Yes.
sabotage it, and they can pass military information to the Arab, other Palestinian. Whom the Israelis think will be a security threat to them. So that's a kind of so that 20% is a big population. 20% is not just 2% or just to ignore it. So you cannot declare a exclusive Jewish state without taking into consideration the 20% of the Arab population. So, and if a democratic state should not have apartheid rules. A democratic state should not invade another country and occupy for more than 70 years. It's not 1-2 years. The United States occupied Afghanistan, but in 20 years they withdrew, right? Iraq, they were there for about less than 10 years or so, so they just withdrew. But that's whatever the problems we have with the United States, their international, their foreign policy is concerned. But Israel is doing totally democracies, this the antithesis of democracies. That's what they are doing. It's right.
Right.
Yeah.